Hello, it's nice to be with you again. It's been a little while, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity to share again with you from my book, Tonight I Am a Butterfly, Celebrating Seasons of Change. And as I have been sharing previously, many of my readings are about all aspects of life, and I haven't done any readings as yet about relationships. Now, everybody calls me the relationship expert or the relationship guru or whatever, and people are accustomed to me talking about love, sex, relationships. So, among these 61 readings from my book, there are a couple, well, more than two. They're actually a set of readings that do deal with relationships and various aspects of relationships, love, men, women, and so on. And I thought I felt this time around to do something, do one of the readings about relationships. So this one is called From Pain to Personal Power. So I invite you to draw near. Those of you who may have the book, perhaps you can read along with me. Or if you've never bought this book, perhaps this will pique your interest and you'll reach out to me so you can get a copy. And I'm going to start. This one is called, as I said, From Pain to Personal Power. I'm not reading the entire reading. I'll just read a few snippets from it so you kind of get the gist of what this one is about. It's reading 46. And it starts with a quote. We all make mistakes, have struggles, and even regret things in our past. But you are not your mistakes. You are not your struggles. And you are here now with the power to shape your day and your future. Steve Maraboli. Okay, so that man or that woman did you wrong. Well, maybe that's not so okay, but the reality is that as long as we are in a relationship, we are going to experience some pain. So what exactly should we do when we find ourselves deep in the throes of relationship pain or anguish? We have a choice among several responses which will more or less determine how well we are able to cope with the seeming injustices of relationships. Of course, I'm in no way suggesting that all relationship infractions are equal. Breaking a date, constantly leaving the toilet seat up, and being unfaithful are all distinct issues with varying levels of gravity. When an action or behavior by our spouse or close friend causes us to experience feelings of rejection, low self-esteem, extreme irritation, or bitter disappointment, it's within our power to determine where we will allow these experiences to take us. The following describes the range of responses from which we can choose. The pity party. When we are hurt or angry, feeling sorry for ourselves can be fairly valuable for about 2 minutes. We need that much time to hunch our shoulders, bite our lips, and concentrate on our pain before we decide what we are going to do about it. This pseudo comfort, which a pity party allows, is actually quite short-lived. There is perhaps nothing as disempowering as wallowing in a place of self-pity for too long. When we do this, we are seeing ourselves as victims, as weak, as powerless, and even sometimes as deserving of the punishment we are enduring. In a pity party, we don't only own our pain, as we should, but we hold on to it for dear life. We come to identify ourselves by it and see ourselves only through the lens of our relationship pain or dissatisfaction. Ultimately, this is counterproductive and inhibits us from moving into action. Revenge mode. There is a very common human emotion which encourages us to want that eye for an eye. When we have been hurt and we are in the throes of pain, sometimes we can be motivated to retaliate by causing similar hurt to our partners. It is not always literally feasible to perhaps do the same thing that was done to us, but the objective of dwelling in this mode is to try to damage our partner's psyche as much as ours has been. Usually, this is an extreme response to deep pain caused by infidelity or some other really serious infraction. Stonewalling. Some of us believe that remaining silent while fuming and seething on the inside is self-empowering. Because we are not crying, ranting, raving, or throwing things, we deceive ourselves into thinking that we have a handle on our difficult emotions and that we are somehow large and in charge. Actually, we couldn't be farther from the truth. Refusing to talk about the things which our partner or even our close friend does that irritate us only serves to give those things more power over us. When an issue remains undiscussed and unsettled, it retains the power to shape our thinking, feelings, and emotions. Then there's another response: claiming personal power. Seizing personal power out of relationship difficulty sounds wonderful and resonates with a certain political correctness. It is, however, not as simple as it seems. This preferred response often involves admitting personal weakness and exposing our own vulnerability. We have to be willing first to admit that what our partner, friend, or colleague has done or neglected to do caused us pain. Sometimes we even have to admit our own part in the problem. Whether we communicate this calmly or with loads of emotion, we must be willing to share our real feelings. This is the beginning of our own healing. While we cannot control what someone else does to us, we can control our responses to it. This brings us to the need to assume personal responsibility for our own emotional well-being. As I said, this reading is called From Pain to Personal Power. That was not the entire reading. I actually just read snippets of each reaction. And in essence, what this reading is talking about is our propensity or habit of choosing particular types of responses to the challenges that are a natural part of a relationship. And even though I wrote this thinking of the romantic relationship, thinking of marriage, thinking of that type of intimate relationship, it really can be applied to any type of relationship that is particularly close. It could be parental, it could be a very close friend, it could even be a professional colleague. So whichever relationship you want to apply it to, you can apply the principle. The principle is the same, even though I was talking about the intimate man-woman relationship. And it summarizes that, we can have the pity party. Many of us do this. We can go into revenge mode. We can get silent and stonewall. And very many men do this. They love to stonewall. Or we can choose to claim power by assuming responsibility for our own emotional well-being, for our own sense of wellness, for our own sense of wholeness, by confronting our partner, confronting our friend, confronting our colleague. Now, this is not always easy, and I have been in a number of relationships over the years with friends, where sometimes confrontation is not always easy because you always run the risk of being misunderstood. Actually, when it comes to relationships, I feel a lot more comfortable confronting my husband, I guess because at the end of the day, I think he gets me, he understands me, even though we may have a big disagreement or a big falling out sometimes. He really understands who I really am. So at the end of the day, we are able to work things through. But I have confronted friends before, and that has not always gone well, But I think that confrontation, and it doesn't have to be harsh. I know it sounds like a harsh word. Confrontation doesn't mean quarreling and being loud and obnoxious. It just means being honest and open about how you really feel about the broken relationship or about the sense of disloyalty or the feeling of rejection. And sometimes we tend to bide our time and try to do the confrontation or the challenge or the exposure at the right time. I think sometimes doing it at the right time is actually critical. Not sometimes, all the time. What I was going to say is that sometimes if we do it at the wrong time, sometimes it can be counterproductive, or if we do it in the wrong way. So if you're really angry or bitter or hurt about something, it is good perhaps if you can work through some of those emotions first before you try to confront that person. Because if you confront them while you're still feeling very negative, it could get really explosive and really nasty. And you don't necessarily want that, because that won't bring the resolution you're hoping for. So what in essence this reading is saying is that you can decide to wallow in your pain, or you can seek to claim personal power from it. And that does not always mean having every single issue resolved. Even in marriage, there are things sometimes that you have to agree to disagree. You know, that is not always a full resolution as you may want it, but it can bring a sense of peace to know that you have at least exposed how you felt about the situation. And depending on what it is, some things are going to be huge deal breakers, things like infidelity, things like dishonesty, that you really can't move forward in the relationship unless both of you bring your discourse to the table. But then there are other issues that you can look over, or you can postpone dealing with them because they don't carry as much weight or as much currency. But still they may irritate you and cause you great grief, you know. So you have to work through the situations depending on what, you know, they are and how weighty they are. But the principle is the same. Be willing to lovingly confront. Be willing to be open about how you really feel. Don't bite your pain. Don't hide what you're going through. Expose yourself, even if it means being vulnerable. And at the end of the day, this is going to help you to move to a place of personal power, you know. And each reading comes at the end with a set of interactive questions. This one asks, what has been the greatest source of pain or dissatisfaction in your personal relationship? So even in the book, I'm challenging you to be honest with yourself. Then it says, what has been your coping style? Have you been one to be the victim with the self-pity? Have you used anger and stonewalling? Do you use revenge? Or do you use assertive confrontation? Or maybe you use some other style that I don't speak about. And I encourage you to talk about it. Then the last thing I ask is, what steps are you willing to take to empower yourself after a season of hurt? Now, each of these readings come with, they all begin with a quotation, as you heard me, a quotation by someone else other than myself. Then I have the reading. Then at the end of each reading, there are a set of questions with even lines for you to fill out. So, you know, you have space. So it's like a journal. This book is like a journal. There are 61 of these readings, and each one of them has space at the end for you to read, for you to reflect on what you've just read, for you to take notes. You know, you can write in a pencil because you may want to go back, you know, so it's really useful. It's really valuable. If you haven't yet had a copy of Tonight I'm a Butterfly, Celebrating Seasons of Change, you know, hit me up, DM me, give me a call, 239-7514, and I will let you know how you can get a copy of this book. Yes? So thanks so much for joining me for another session of Read with me, and I will see you next time. Blessings.